Hello, it's Helen Godden here, and I'd like to share with you one of my latest designs, Picasso Still Life. It's a set of 9, but this time I'm doing something a little bit different. I am combining my love of Lumiere acrylic paints on the black with applique. So in this one here, some of these elements are actually appliqued on. So it gives another dimension of colour, of texture and of patterning. Now I certainly intend to quilt into the background and add all those crazy fills that I love to do, but by adding the applique it's another whole dimension to the whole piece. So this is called Cocktail Hour, and this is one of the 9 blocks from my Picasso Still Life series. And then I've enlarged that to a 10-inch square. Now you can enlarge it to any size you like as long as you enlarge all your designs to the same size. And then I have appliqued and painted. So let me show you another example. This one is called Cackle berries and it includes eggs. Okay, so I've enlarged that, and it perhaps looks a bit odd at the moment until we put those applique elements in. So there I've got a bit of a spotty theme, and I've got a blue and white spot for the bowl, and that makes it look a bit shiny, and it's a different scale to these eggs that I'm adding. So one egg there, another egg there. So I like the spots, I've gone with a spotty theme, and then the egg yolk. Look how this changes when you put that yellow in there. Okay, and what you can do too is move it around a bit to decide where that little extra black shadow will be. Okay, so now I've peeled the paper off the back of those, so they are ready to iron into place. So let's give that a go. So I've got the Wonder Under or Vlizer Fix, you know, the fusible web underneath those fabrics. How cool is that? I'm loving that. So I'm really looking forward now to stitching into it. And I love the spots. Just added that extra element to that design. So you've gone from that to that. So the next design I'm going to show you, the third design, is called Tea for Two. So with the applique, of course, you've got to remember to trace the shapes for your applique from the other side of the design. Okay, I traced it this way. And then when you turn it back over, it faces the right way. I know you understand that. It's a classic issue with appliques. Trace from the wrong side of the design, so you've got the reverse. And then when you flip it back over, it's the right way. So yes, I've got the spotty shapes for the apples, and I'm just going to cut those out nice and neatly. I'm going to cut them slightly inside the line that I traced, just to make them slightly smaller, and I'll show you why in a moment. Right, so these 2 elements here goes one there, one there. So let's now put those onto the design itself. So I've already traced this design onto my black fabric with my panda pencil. Okay, now these are the panda pencils that I sell. These are magic. When you need to get a new tip, you pull that thread down, cut through that paper, and then you can unravel that, which makes a pink streamer, but it also exposes more of the white. Okay, if you wanted that to be a very sharp point, you could put just the tip in a pencil sharpener, but otherwise this is perfect for drawing here on the black fabric. And the beauty is this will not brush off while I'm over handling it. The only trouble is now is if I wanted to iron these into position before I started painting, well, that will iron away the design unless I'm very, very careful. Okay, so I am going to iron these ones on. I think it is easier to have them in place and paint next to them so that you get your colours coordinated rather than having these off to the side and you're not relating to the colours. So here's how I actually take the paper off the back. Sometimes I'll see people playing with that edge and trying to get their nail in there, and you end up wrecking the edge of your applique. Grab a pin, rip through that paper, and look at that, it comes off easy peasy with no damage to the edges of that applique. I'm going to pop that in place. So now as far as which areas to do the applique, I haven't marked those on the pattern or decided which areas. I simply looked at my design and thought, which areas do I want to emphasize to really have them come forward? So for instance, these shadow areas, I don't think they're areas that I would want to emphasize, okay? Not the handle, but the fact that it's a teapot and then the main three feature elements, which is the fruit. Sometimes I like putting what I consider wallpaper in the background, and that can look quite cute. For instance, if you put two pieces in here the same of some fabric that look like wallpaper, you would also put it down in there because that's the space in the handle of the teapot. But yeah, so just be selective about where you put your applique and putting it on features where you want the eye to be drawn and also fairly evenly spaced. So on this one I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sort of evenly spaced around, and also an odd number, which is interesting because odd numbers just always visually look better. So originally I had just the knob of the teapot, but I think 2 elements for the teapot, seeing it's a fairly large piece. These 2 shapes help us know that they're both apples because they've got the same colouring, and then the pear there. So I'll have to remember to add that little stem on there. So when you buy this pattern, there's 9 designs and it's called Picasso Still Life. I've also included photos of the same designs, but I have created them each with my sun dyes, which is painting with the sun dyes on calico or muslin to give that watercolour effect. And I'll have that included in the pattern just so you can see a variety of ways that you could approach and use these designs. So now with my iron, I'm going to super carefully come in here and just iron those on. Add the fabric now rather than adding the fabric later like I did with this one. The main issues I have here, sometimes my black gaps are wide and sometimes really skinny because my applique wasn't as precise perhaps as it should have been. By putting the applique down first, I'm going to be able to paint right up to where I need, leaving that little black gap. So I talk a lot about black gaps in a lot of my classes, but it's these black gaps that bring the design together, and that's also where we're going to be stitching. So when we're painting here, I am going to leave a black gap, and I've just put my panda pencil back there again, and I can actually use that as my guide. See how it's quite a fat line, to know to paint just up to the side of that, not right up to the edge of the fabric. So now I'm going to demonstrate for you some painting. So straight away I've got my cup of water and paper towel and my brushes. Now I sell these brushes on my website. There's a set of 5 of them for just $20. I've got all the Lumiere beautiful paints on my website. These are just delicious. I never get tired of these. So I want to mix a nice limey green colour. So I've mixed the green and the gold together, and I'm going to get slightly darker than this lime green. So I'm painting right up to the edge of that white line, and I have managed to leave myself that little gap. Just going to put a little bit of a highlight on there. Now this red is sinking in a little bit to the black, so I might end up giving it an extra coat of paint. Otherwise, I do have another colour on my website called Redder Than Red, and it's an opulence range like this one, a different brand of paint made in Australia but in a slightly different colour range. They do have a red, I just haven't got it here with me today, so I'm going with what I've got, which in the Lumiere range is this crimson, which is just a little bit darker. Now, why are they called Picasso? Picasso was a cubist, Pablo Picasso. He liked to take elements and reduce them down to geometric shapes, which is not what I've done here, but I have got the shapes overlapping, interlocking, creating an abstract design with them, not trying to be realistic. And when something is slightly abstracted, it's perfect for us to paint or to do as applique, because this is not about recreating a realistic apple. It's a symbol of an apple, which means for those of you that don't feel like you're really an artist or not very good at painting, well, this is perfect because you're not trying to make a realistic apple, it's a symbol of an apple. So the teapot is going to be blue and green. Now the old saying of blue and green should never be seen, well, let's just break those rules, okay? Blue and green look terrific together. I think blue is going to look best in behind all these elements. So I'm going with the blue. Now this is the pearl blue and it's a lovely sheen of a colour. And already you can see how the red apple is standing out against the blue. And the pear in particular is coming forward, which is really what I want. I want the teapot to be sort of background and the pear to come forward with the other fruit. Now, those of you that paint with me regularly know that this is my favourite colour. This is Secret Weapon Jade, otherwise just known as Jade, but look at it, beautiful, and look, almost empty. Gosh, I wish I knew where I could buy a new bottle from. That would be helengodden.com. So this is absolutely beautiful colour. I tell you, any design that has this in it is a winner. It just looks fantastic. So if in doubt, Secret Weapon Jade. There we go. So as far as the teapot goes, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas still to go. My brain says, well, this is kind of shadow here on the teapot from the pear. That's kind of shadow, that's in shadow. I'm going to go with my dark blue, which is my indigo. It's like a denim blue. Because if I went for a light colour, well, I don't really want these areas standing out as being important. Then they're not really, because of course your eye always goes to the lightest or the highest contrast area. You actually can control the viewer. You can control where they look in a design, where they look in a painting by the colour choices. Have a look at that next time you're looking at a painting of where does it make your eye go? This design obviously is quite circular. It goes around and around. So we go from here up the handle. These lines help us go back around. It just continually joins the whole piece together. Have a look at artwork and see how that artist is directing your eye. It's quite fascinating. Okay, and these will look black once the Panda pencil is ironed away. So it just looks better and better the more it dries, and then when you iron it, it does really magic things to that Lumiere paint. The colours just really come alive. Right, I'm going to use the grape, which is a dark purple colour, for my shadows, because I think the purple up against this pear is going to look terrific. And you know, it's not even so much that this has to be accurate, these shadows, they just are shapes that go with the whole design and kind of fill in these areas. The way I've got them exaggerated in that horizontal kind of feel very much helps us understand that these items are sitting on a tabletop. They are not floating in the air, that they are sitting on something, and that is giving us those shadows. Right, I'm going to dive in here with the red again, just to bring that a bit more opaque and less transparent. So that underneath layer was virtually dry, so that means I can just go back on top there with that secondary layer. There we go, I like that. It's a pink lady apple. I love pink lady apples. I think I want to make this look like there's a lot more sunshine in this room, which is why there are strong purple shadows on the ground. This is a sunny day looking in on someone about to have a cup of tea. So I'm going to add some bright gold for the tabletop here. So truly I had not pre-planned much of this at all. I really am just making it up as I go, and I can guarantee you, no matter what colour combo you do, it always looks terrific in these Lumiere paints. And particularly if you leave that black gap, like I say, it doesn't matter what colours you use, there's always the strong design that you started with. Now I'm trying to be fairly neat down those edges. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to trim these back and create these into a 9 patch, because there is 9 of them all together. Otherwise, I could just paint over that edge, right across the edge, knowing that it's going to get trimmed back. And that's the other alternative. And then along the front, I'm going to use an even brighter gold, which will sort of imply even more light at the front of this design. So this is brass, which is the palest of the golds, and that's going to look terrific. Wow, okay, so now for the background. I don't want it to jump forward, I really want it to sit back. So I've got a lovely colour called burgundy, and a neutral kind of colour here called halo violet gold, and they're kind of the same, but one's just lighter than the other. I might just go with the one section of dark in the background behind the teapot. One thing I hope you're seeing is just how easily these colours go on. They are just smooth and creamy, and they're a water-based paint. Water-based acrylic, so if they ever get thick, which sometimes the white will do that, that's when you can add just a little tiny drop of water and mix it in and bring it back to being that creamy consistency. So some of you might do applique, some will do paint, some will use Inktense pencils in different colour combinations and in different techniques. And also different sizes. Now you could enlarge these, or you could make these really quite small. I've got one lady that uses my designs and she does weaving with them. Can you believe it? She weaves on a loom. People bring my designs to life and I love it. Now I've really lost that black edge there. So when that is dry, that's where I'll use my Sharpie. Sharpie, don't leave home without it. Now, those of you that know me, I have a strict 30-second Sharpie rule. I don't want to see anyone using a Sharpie for more than 30 seconds because you can overdo it and it can look pretty awful. So just those few places that you'll want to fix up, but later on you'll be stitching into those areas with your black thread anyway, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate to you in the next video. So there we go. I've now created 3 of my 9 blocks in my Picasso still life, and this time the Lumiere paints with the applique, giving it quite a different look. So I'm going to let this dry, give it an iron. I'm then going to sandwich it up, and I'll see you in the sewing room. See you very soon. Education and inspiration from HelenGodden.com.